Welcome to the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners meeting for July 26, 2021. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you for joining me in that. I was just thinking of, we'll be doing that with a whole community group Wednesday at 11 o'clock for the opening of the fair. So they got the flagpole and have a ceremony at the opening of the Deschutes County Fair this Wednesday. It's 11 o'clock, not 10 o'clock.
Right, 11. And tomorrow night just starts the slack for the rodeo, and my niece Jordan Miner is going to be competing.
Here we go.
Yeah, she just was in Cheyenne yesterday. So Cheyenne to Redmond, and I think she's in Napa today. So, yeah, she's been at least winning a lot of money.
Is she flying?
No, she's flying with her horse. Yeah.
Flying?
No, she's got her. No, she drove to Napa.
Truly driving, yeah.
She's truly driving, and then she'll be here tomorrow night. So, yeah.
Okay.
She's a woman on a mission.
Obviously. First item is consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang? And Chair votes yes. Item number 3, Public Safety JAG Grant Application. I think this is Justice Assistance, if that's the terminology. I don't know that it's in here. So, yeah, maybe Nathan Garibay or Jennifer Hill.
Or Peter Martin.
Peter Martin. All in favor?
Commissioner, yeah, I'm sorry, I can speak to this.
Yeah, please do.
So this is a grant that we traditionally apply for each year. A little bit different this year. Historically, the Sheriff's Office has applied for it for different items that could be used as part of their operation. This year, I understand they are partnering with the City of Bend. So Bend Police is also able to take advantage of this grant as well. I don't believe it's something related to automotive, but I don't recall exactly.
Tracking device.
Tracking device. So
You can shoot on during the
Yes,
pursuit.
mobile launcher system.
at any rate, it's pretty standard. I believe there's a amount that they are allocated that they can then apply for. So again, this is just authority to apply for the grant. If you have follow-up questions or like us to report back a little bit more about the specifics, I'm happy to coordinate that.
So this is the application process. We have, it mentions we do have this technology, and this would just be expanding it. It's the Star Chase system, which really reduces risky high-speed pursuits in some situations.
Yeah, having read the background on this project, I don't have any questions. I was more curious about the JAG program itself, and Tom, thanks for that little bit of background. I didn't quite understand how the money was pre-allocated and then they just had to apply for it.
Well, we'll have another opportunity to hear from them if it gets awarded, is my understanding also.
Not necessarily for this one. There's no staff involved in this. There's no real agreement that you would apply for. This is just, and again, dollar amount is pretty nominal. I believe this is accounted for within their annual budget each year. So, but if you would like a little bit of report on it, I'm happy to coordinate.
I wouldn't need any other follow-up, but if another commissioner is interested.
Yeah, I thought the description was
Okay.
sufficient.
So is there a motion then?
I move approval of the Public Safety JAG application of grant funding application for $9,477
I'll second.
Any other discussion?
by the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office.
Okay.
Please add to my motion.
So seeing no other discussion, Commissioner Adair,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes.
Yeah, we all know how those high-speed pursuits work out, so it's really good
Yeah.
that they have this.
Item number 4, discussion of a request to convert 14.5 FTE limited duration positions to regular positions. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Janice Garceau, for the record, Director of Deschutes County Behavioral Health. Nice to see you all in person. I am here with Holly Harris
Program Manager, Crisis Services.
and Cheryl Smallman, our Finance Officer, our Business Officer, is here too in case there are specific questions about budget. We're here before you today to request approval to convert 14.5 limited duration positions to regular, including adding a 10% differential for night shift employees and a 7.5% differential for swing shift employees for the Deschutes County Stabilization Center. As you're aware, and we've discussed in other settings, there is a significant crisis nationally in the state of Oregon, in the county of Deschutes, in terms of recruiting and retaining professional staff. Behavioral health clinicians are actually in the top 5 of professions that are experiencing a shortage nationwide. And recruiting for alternative shifts like the 3 to 11 p.m. shift or the night shift at the Stabilization Center has been challenging. So this proposal is an attempt to address that and ensure that the Stabilization Center is adequately staffed to provide the 24/7 services that it's been providing now for, I believe we've passed the year mark, and has been providing well, safely, and with significantly high service counts. We are, well, I can pause there.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Really proud of the Stabilization Center efforts. 24-hour operation, a lot of folks being served in this, and yeah, congratulations on getting to a year. I know that was a big commitment to commit to that facility, but it's yeah, fully functional and operational. So we know what it looks like to have a Stabilization Center now. Any thoughts?
It does look like you're missing 4 people right now on these employees, page 10 of our handout, and it looks like there's a person it says vacant with the description. Okay, and it looks like every shift has 1 person vacant or something.
Just about. Not, I don't
Yeah.
think day shift has a vacancy yet, but almost all of some of those were new positions that came from the budget process. So we're in the process of recruiting for those. And then others have been vacant for quite some time on night shift. And we still have a person in that role, but when that person needs vacation or calls in sick, we have to really scramble to try to find some coverage. And so we need these other positions that have been open for quite some time. We need to incentivize them somehow, and also incentivize the people that are in the positions to stay with us.
The other day, I met someone who was currently working for Crisis Services who was going to shift to another department in behavioral health, and I was, I thought that was at least good that they were staying inside the department, but just another, it was just another reminder to me that it's challenging to keep people.
Well, and thankfully, we are very fortunate on the crisis team in which when we lose people, we often lose them to outpatient teams. So
Mostly.
we do tend to train them up really well, and then they go to outpatient, which that's wonderful because that serves all of us well. But we do tend to be a training ground oftentimes. But night shift and swing shift positions are even an extra challenge on top of an already challenging job.
So I had an additional question. I know I just wanted to know, are there any bilingual people that you actually have? Because I realize everyone across the country is having a horrible time finding employees, but do we have bilingual people in the program?
We do. We have 3 and one of them is on our mobile crisis. Actually, we have 4 bilingual staff. And then we're also doing something, we're piloting A program called Linguava, which is a tablet that we can access when we need translation services. We have a tablet that can immediately connect with a live person through the tablet to provide immediate translation services for those languages we do not have on site.
Is that available 24 hours a day? then?
Yes. Yes.
Great. That's good.
One of the things I wanted to ask was, so with this request, we have the opportunity that there's a few things that we have a lot of control over, whether these are regular positions, pay differentials, things like that. I'm wondering if there are kind of broader factors, housing, things like that, that would be helpful in recruitment and retention of staff, that it would be good for us to understand or be aware of.
Yes. The short answer is yes, it's complex. So there are many things that we are working on internally right now and in collaboration with HR around incentivizing this very difficult work. And we're sensitive to the fact that we're having those conversations in an environment where there are people looking for work who can't find work. But work in the community mental health program is tough, and it requires a lot of skill. The volume is high, the client acuity is significant, meaning that the seriousness of the conditions we're dealing with, the crisis stabilization is probably on the extreme end of what people encounter. But we're working hard to find ways to tell our staff how important they are to us through things like pay differentials when there's work that's difficult to do or over and above the normal schedule. Stipends for extra skills, like the ability to speak another language that our clients speak, or provide services through a substance use disorder credential. We're looking at other options. Those are obviously still under discussion with HR. We also are working to maximize on our efforts to become a trauma-informed organization. That's a soft term, but what it really means is thinking about how we're treating each other internally while we're doing hard work. We work very hard to develop a benefits package that includes lots of opportunities for training. And we're still open to ideas, so we're listening to our staff when we have opportunities to what helps them stay in the work.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So converting from these term limited positions to regular positions is the ask, and I know we've done homework on this. I just go back to this analysis for fiscal year, future fiscal years, and it's going to be very important. As I say, I come to the conclusion that there is a belief, there's community support, there's legislative support at the state level. Federal government seems to be going down this path. So the future looks like this is the right way to go. But there's some big numbers out there, the unfunded future numbers. That's, the reality of this situation. It would be news if we scaled back. And that's kind of one of the things I think of. The community, the way the opinions online and the media, it would be news if we scale back. So we're growing into something, and if we ever said, well, we're not going to have our midnight shift or something, probably arms would be raised all over the place. So I'm just the reality of the situation.
I really do want to see those numbers, though. I want to know how many people are there from 12 a.m. to 6 p.m. because they were not at the other stabilization centers that I visited personally. And so when are we going to have our next report on the numbers?
I actually have that information for you, and I'll be happy to send it to you electronically as well.
Oh, good.
Yes, so we had to do some data mining, but we didn't do midnight to 7 a.m. We did 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. because that's what we do not have funded. If everything were to if all the grant funding went away and we weren't able to find additional funding, we can operate Monday through Friday until 9. And so what we discovered is about 25% of clients are served during the time from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. And how we got that number is twofold. about 11% of people walk in during that time, so obviously not going to be your highest volume walk-in time. But 14% of clients are in respite during that time. So that 23-hour observation respite unit that we have, a lot of the folks that enter that unit come in during different shifts. So they walk in day shift or swing shift even, but then they're staying throughout the night. So having to have staff on site to manage the people in the recliners and make sure they're supported so that when the morning comes around, we can actually make a solid plan for them. And we've really avoided emergency department utilization during that time, as well as the jail. Because as you all know, there's really not many other places for a person to go at 2 a.m.
But I was just acknowledging that, it's a commitment. It's a commitment we're making by doing this, and there's going to be community expectations, and we want to know the numbers, obviously. But that makes a lot of good sense, get somebody stabilized for that 8, 10, 12-hour period, and then you got a more focused situation the next morning also.
When the resources are available.
Yeah.
And Holly, when you say walk-ins, I mean, I know another pathway into the stabilization center is coming in with law enforcement. So when you said walk-ins, does that include the people? Okay.
I should probably come up with a different term. It's really arrivals. So it includes both law enforcement drop-offs as well as general public walk-in.
Got it. Okay.
And I think one of the concerns we've had, and I just want to take an opportunity to sort of say out loud in a very public way, I think there's been a thought that we're mostly serving, homeless, very mentally ill individuals. The reality is this service, 70% plus, more than 70% of the people we serve are not unhoused. They are our neighbors and our kids and family members as a community. And I think that's a critical piece to just keep out front, that this has been a vital service for regular folks who are having a really difficult time, and not have the Stabilization Center pigeonholed as serving just one part of the population who we care about very much and we serve well, but is not the entire span of the work that's being done there.
So is there a expectation of a motion today, or is this just a conversation for a future agenda
It says
item? I
they
guess I
want a
wasn't
motion.
clear.
Yeah.
It says to move converting, because it is really, you've got to get that extra funding in order to actually attract
And
people
then-
that will sign on the dotted line or stay in the dotted line, right?
Yeah, I believe the request is for a motion, and then I think Dan Emerson has scheduled to come back with the budget adjustment if the motion is approved, in not this week, next week.
Well, that's why, I was kind of making sure which way we're,
Carol's itching to come up here. And
yeah, please explain, so how much of a,
I wasn't aware there was a money ask as part of this.
well,
Cheryl Smallman.
let's get clear.
The money
Business
look
office.
forward at least.
Yes, there's a resolution that would be placed on the consent or the discussion agenda on the 4th of August. There is not a budget adjustment associated with this. We do have enough appropriation this year for that.
Sorry, it's an FTE change.
Bing, 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 some alarms went off. But future years, and we know, this is the annual budget discussion and the partnership in Central Oregon, because there could be residents from the Tri-County area, or, there's probably no limit for anybody walking in the door, right? That's it. So, but yeah, the partnerships, the emergency room, public safety, other agencies, cities, and as I say, Central Oregon, other counties and cities too, out of Deschutes.
Yeah, and we have, looking forward just a little over a month, we have scheduled our we've scheduled our joint meeting with the Bend City Council, and we haven't specifically laid out agenda items, but in my mind, this was going to definitely be one of the items that we should be discussing with the city of Bend and trying to kind of, basically have all of these key partners think about leaning in on ensuring that the funding is there in the coming fiscal year to operate the Stabilization Center 24/7.
So what is the number for the percentage of Bend people being served then? Holly, do you have that today?
Yeah, well, last time I looked, which it's not most updated, probably not gold, it's about 64% from the city of Bend, and about 16% from the city of Redmond.
Redmond.
I think we were serving about
that's good because it was from the money that we got, the $500,000 from the Central Oregon Health Council. Wanted it to be for the whole community. So I'm glad to know they're using it on some basis.
When people come in from Crook County or Jefferson County, do we have a sense of whether those people are kind of bringing themselves in, or are they arriving with law enforcement, or?
Generally not with law enforcement, because that's just a little bit of further drive than law enforcement. I think I feel like we've had at least one come in from law enforcement, but primarily it's either family members bringing them in, or they happen to be in Deschutes County when their mental health crisis happened, and so they came in, and then other times we're working with our community partners in the other counties to help get them to us so that we can help serve them.
So then we were talking about the positions, but also a 10% differential for a night shift and 7.5% differential for a swing shift. So this is a decision point for that also. Just acknowledging that for our board, and we understand.
These were things that came up during the AFSCME negotiations and then sort of got separated to this other track.
And it's actually.
And frankly, these are things that we, aside from any request directly from staff or from the union negotiation, these were things that we were considering in advance of that. So we've been aware for a while that swing and night shifts are very difficult to fill and maintain, and this has been on our agenda for some time.
So then on the resources line of our little table here, funds possible. What are those offhand, you know? Cheryl knows. She's ready for that one.
Yeah, the funds possible are associated with the Oregon Health Authority service element dollars, service element 9 jail diversion dollars that were from previous years that are currently unspent. Now, why they are possible is we haven't gone through the settlement and reconciliation process, which they anticipate will occur in the next 2 to 3 months. And so we have this money set aside to pay back in the event that we need to, or to utilize for these purposes in coming years.
Well, and I think there's going to be very much a state legislative discussion, other places around the state, and if we're, managing people and the population successfully, hopefully there's, going to be a state commitment also in the future years.
Yeah.
This year, so that the $10 million that was allocated for the impacts grant was
For the next biennium.
We'll have to reapply for that, or how
Yeah.
that's gonna look, I don't know yet.
So impacts grant refunded for the next biennium.
And there's nothing in converting these positions to regular that prevents us from covering them with service element dollars, grant funds, or other sources of revenue if they become available. This is really just a way to shore up the positions, make them part of our overall staffing, and reassure staff that when we hire them, we're making every effort to keep them as long as we can. So.
Great.
In this, that last question was about funds possible, kind of what's in there. Could we get a general overview of the other two categories, the funds confirmed, or really, I guess funds likely would be the other one to ask about, like what's in that box?
In the funds likely, those are associated with unspent funding related to, so there's under the Behavioral Health Specialist 1, BJA funding source, we are significantly underspent. So we would ask for a no-cost extension to spend those funds as originally approved in the coming years. So we think that that position is covered. Similarly with the co-responder and the admin and, one under admin support technician, we have partial year funding for that one, and that's why it's funds likely.
Got it.
So at this time, are we ready to proceed?
Sure.
Okay. I move approval of converting 14.5 FTE limited duration positions to regular and adding a 10% differential to night shift and a 7.5% differential to swing shift positions for the Deschutes County Stabilization Center.
A second.
Okay, so just final thoughts from myself. As I say, I do see this as a partnership at the state and the federal level, and a partnership locally. So it's all hands on deck. But, as I say, some of these numbers really get big out in the future years. It's a big commitment. And it is proving itself, hopefully really stabilizing people in the community with their families, not, bringing people to the incarceration route or the, long-term in the health system. So it's a step forward.
Somehow we need to get someone from St. Charles looking at the numbers. Are we sending them, Holly, those numbers?
We talk about them in the CIT steering committee, which St. Charles is a part of, and then I believe we talk about it when we meet with care council before, which also St. Charles is a part of. I don't send them to them just directly to a person over there. I'm not sure who I would send them to at this point, but we can certainly talk about who that might be, and I'm happy to share them with anybody. They're very transparent.
Yeah, maybe we need to send them to Joe Sluka and start at the top and just say, we want you to know how many people we have diverted from the emergency room, and it's really necessary that the hospital actually can step up a bit.
Well, along those lines, maybe let's put a memo together from the board to the hospital
Right.
system, just as a conversation starter,
Yes,
not
because
even an
we've been
ask.
doing this for a year, and
Yeah, maybe
that's
it's
a
an
great
annual
idea.
report, yeah.
We'll do a letter to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think we really need to.
There we go.
It's important.
Okay, any other discussion?
Well, I guess the if we're assembling that information for a letter, I'm wondering if we've done that for some of the other funding partners as well recently, the other potential funding partners. I know we've made a request to the city of Bend, but that was prompted by them. They asked for that information, right? And so we haven't necessarily done the same thing for the city of Redmond.
No, we were going to, but their budget process had already concluded. They do a annual budget process, so they were kind of wrapping up already at that point for theirs.
Right.
We had conversations about it.
Mhm.
but no formal letter was submitted.
Right. But so, maybe we could start that process now, and, it just seems like even though they won't make their budget decisions for the next fiscal year until, spring, the sooner you get the sooner you get it on the radar screen, the better in some ways. So maybe we could
absolutely.
we could just work on a batch of letters right now.
Yeah, this is, from my perspective, this is our year to start now, talking with any of our community partners who think this is an important investment about if there's putting dollars in their budgets, this would be the time. We're certainly going to have a conversation with the CCO and the hospital and other partners and make data available to them about the impact that the Stabilization Center has had and some of the downstream costs that may be offset by the work we're doing. So I agree. This is the time, and any support that each of you is willing to offer in that regard is really appreciated. It makes a big difference.
Right. And are the lines of communication with the CCO and with the sheriff's office already very well established, or would it be worthwhile to kind of put a letter in the mix there as well, or?
That really is your call as electeds. I'm not sure what the protocols are for how you draft those kinds of communications with community partners. I can say that we meet regularly with law enforcement, we meet regularly with the CCO, and we meet regularly with St. Charles, and we have had some conversations with the cities. So I think our relationships with all of those entities are really strong as a service provider. Conversations about budgets are always a little bit different, but again, we're happy to come to any setting and talk about what this service has done for the community and what its loss would mean to the community. They contribute quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
very strong partner in this project. And often they still provide lots of in-kind services as well, nursing staff, and they provide food to their resident clients as well as all the kids. They've been, it's been phenomenal partner.
Yeah, it'd be safe to say that without the sheriff's office, this probably wouldn't have happened. I mean, there were many other players, lots of other commitments, but the sheriff has been an amazing partner.
So, I mean, with entities like the sheriff's office or the CCO, maybe the letter could be more along the lines of appreciation for prior support and kind of appreciation of prior support and saying that we hope that they can continue or something like that.
We're still working on the CCO,
Okay.
but we're going to get there,
Okay.
we believe.
So the impacts grant is where we got the 2.4 million, spread out of what, 2.5 years or something?
Yeah, it was a 2-year grant.
2 years.
We're starting year 2.
Right, it was part, okay, I know. Okay, well, that will be interesting, do we even have a clue when they're gonna come up with the rules or what they're gonna do? And you're reporting to them what we're doing?
Oh, yes.
Constantly.
I report with them constantly. I actually just submitted my protocol report. So I'm submitting to them the required data for the permit. I'm also submitting to them all the other data that I want them to know about. So they're getting tons from me, and I actually have a very good relationship with the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission. We're actively talking about the success of the stabilization center. It's a very unique project for that grant program.
Right.
All the different counties are doing something different. Nobody's really doing what we're doing.
Right. It seemed. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean, if it's 2.4 million, yes, hopefully we can, if we can get that amount of funding again, that would be excellent, wouldn't it? Yeah. I think we'd have a good chance.
I mean, I got the impression that a lot of the other counties that were getting impacts funding it was more for mobile crisis type work than for stabilization center type work, which we're also doing and ramping up. And is there a possibility that the impacts program would come back to us and say, we'd like to support your mobile crisis type work, but the crisis stabilization work is sort of like the odd fish out in the pool?
I think so. I don't think they look at it that way. I think all of the programs across the state are kind of unique in that, yes, they're doing kind of this community-based programming work, but all the programs are kind of different. Ours is definitely more unique than theirs, but the talk at the state level and even the national level is really around developing these types of centers. And so we're not some outlier that they're like, I don't know what they're doing. They really seem to be watching what we're doing, proud of what we're doing, and seeing it as a success. And so I think they'll want, well, I don't want to speak for them, but I hope, my intent in this grant was to demonstrate how this can be done in the hopes these were supposed to be kind of demonstration projects, and so if they worked well, they were going to advocate to have them rolled out across the state. So that's my hope, is what they'll see as a success and a model for how it can be done.
Okay, well, in the middle of a motion, any other discussion? I'm just holding on to that. Nope. Seeing none, Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner Dare? And Chair votes yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good discussion.
Very much appreciate the
Yeah.
support.
Yeah, and with this, I think comes a commitment that we will be helping to shake every tree.
Great. Let us know how we can help as well. Thanks.
Item number 5, County Treasurer and Finance Report for June 30th, 2021, the end of the year report.
End of the year, yes. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Greg Munn, County Treasurer and Chief Financial Officer. So that is correct. This is the end of the year report. It's unaudited, so in terms of timing, the departments and the accounting office are spending time now making sure that all of our internal transfers and journal entries accruing expenses and revenue to the proper period are happening now, and soon, in the next couple of weeks, we'll be putting our pencils down, and that's when we move into the audit phase. And sometime probably in November, we'll actually have our books closed for the year and have an audit to produce and share with all of you. So that's where we're at. But today,
It's always exciting in finance.
Well, that's one way to put it. It's exciting for some of us. So in terms of today, I'll just go through the finance report real quick and give you some of the highlights. First thing I'll mention is that the portfolio balance is, at the end of June, was $248.5 million. And that's down about $6 million from the previous month. And if you think about sort of the use of cash over the course of the year, we probably on average spend, $11 million a month in cash. That is just operating expenses that are flowing out. And of course, it changes depending on what's going on with the road department and some of our bigger expenses, but typically that's the cash outflow. And then we have some generally major inflows in November and maybe a couple other times during the year, depending on grants coming in. But there's a lot going on here, so all of those little different ins and outs gets sort of leveled out over time. But a drop of $6 million is not unusual. However, it's $49 million more than this time last year, and that's attributed to just normal growth in the county. Growth is a good thing, and also the big chunk of ARPA funds, $19 million we received back in May. The balances, you see the breakdown there, those are all within our county policy with the exception of the LGIP. You'll note that that's at about $67 million, and that was a significant increase due to the receipt of those ARPA funds. The limit on the pool is $51.2 million, so we're continuing to, can't do this overnight, but slowly utilize those funds and invest those in the market where opportunities exist and that makes sense. And just as a note, we're currently, that says 67.2 at the end of June, but currently today we're at about 59 million. So we're working our way down to get within underneath that limit. Our investment income, $148,000 for the month. That's a decrease of $33,000 from the prior month and $72,000 from the same month last year. And year to date, comparing the two fiscal years, it's a whopping $1.8 million difference in interest earnings. That's pretty significant. Our yield percentages, the average portfolio yield right now is 78 basis points, 0.78%, and that's down slightly from, or it's 0.75, I should say, and down from 0.78 last month. Good news, though, is if you're looking at the benchmarks box here on the report, you'll notice that the 24-month Treasury average at the time at the end of the month was 25 basis points. That's up from 16 prior month, so it's moving in the right direction. Hopefully that means something positive. And on the 36-month, it's at 47 basis points, up from 31 last month. The LGIP rate has stayed flat since March at 60 basis points. Our average portfolio weighted average time to maturity is 1.74 years, and that's consistent with last month. And we only made one purchase this month, and that was a small bond from the McMiniman School District, $170,000. Flip the page, a couple graphics here. I'll note that the 24-month historic investment returns, the red line is the 2-year Treasury rate. So we just talked about how the rates have blipped up a little bit since last month. You can notice the red line that's increased just a little bit from the prior month. The 3-year portfolio balance, you'll notice that there's definitely a pattern that happens over the 3 years. If you look at May 21, which was the data point prior to this month, there's a little bit of a step up there, and those are the ARPA funds. So we would expect to see the decline in the portfolio balance as we utilize funding over the course of the year, but now it's just taken a step up and it'll continue to follow that path. Our maturity distribution schedule down below as we continue to invest in investing some of those excess funds, really focusing in on this the circular part where there's nothing in the ladder. So ideally we'd have a maturity, ideally you'd have a maturity schedule that met exactly what our operating cash flow needs were over the course of 5 years. That's a little bit of a crystal ball, but we can generally get there by just spreading it out over time. On the next page, page 15, is a list of our investments. We only added, again, one investment this month. That's highlighted in blue there. That's the McMinnville School District bond. Next page, position control summary. No change in total FTE counts from last month. sitting at a total of about 1,117. That, but I would note that our vacancy rate, as you would expect, is a little bit higher than it was last year. So right now, we're sitting at 7.84%. Last year it was 6.75%, and when you convert that into FTEs, it's about 16 additional FTEs that are vacant. Okay, over on page 19, so this is the countywide financial, all funds, and I would just point to the budget under requirements. You'll see a number there of $303.8 million. That number last month was $293 million, but as you recall, we came and had a budget adjustment in June that increased that. So we're now at a budget projection that actually includes the CARES funding that was received over the course of the year. If you slide all the way to the right there, you'll see a number of 94%. So what that says is we're projecting to spend 94% of our budget. That's countywide, that's a pretty good number, pretty average, pretty expected. Budget year after budget year, somewhere between, we end up spending 94 to 95% of our budget. So we're right on track there. Flip to page 21. Look at the ending fund balance, all county funds together, of $201 million. That's up from last month's projection of about 199. And these are the numbers that the next time you see them, they'll be finalized. Okay, page number 22, which is the general fund. A couple items I just want to point out to you here is our general fund resources. We're projecting $47.2 million in total general fund resources coming in, and that's, you can see up above, it's primarily made up of property tax revenue, and we're projecting our property tax revenue to be more than what we had originally budgeted, because for this last fiscal year we had estimated the impact of the pandemic to be more on our property tax collections than actually what happened. So that's not unexpected. But overall, we're at 104% projection of our budget. That's probably a little higher than normal. I would say normally on a normal budget year, you're probably about 102%, but it's a good direction to be in. Down on expenses, you'll see $26.2 million projected to spend in the general fund, and these are generally operating funds. This is a lot of payroll, a lot of general county or public-facing operating functions of the county. We're projecting to spend about 96% of our budget. Overall, the ending fund balance, which is an important number, projecting $14.4 million carrying forward on a budget of $9.6 million. The major difference there is that in the budget, or that $9.6 million is effectively our contingency. So the amount that rolls forward is our contingency plus a little bit extra revenue, the 102%, plus 5% savings in our expenses. So those are kind of the dynamics, the hydraulics that seem to work year to year. Okay, I'm going to flip a few pages here.
I have a question on 23 on the juvenile. I just thought it was interesting that your projection is 200,000 more than what our actual is. And I was looking at all the variances, and that said 15,000, 16,000, and I was just wondering.
Are you looking at, Commissioner, are you looking at personnel services?
No, I'm looking at resources. And it's actually, you're saying that the year-end resources are going to be 200,000 more than what is actual?
No, the projection in resources is $959,000.
Right, exactly. But actual as of and June 30th, the actual though is only 758,000. So I was like going, okay, where's that coming from? And the first line is like 130,000 more, but there's, you don't have an explanation there. So I just was wondering where that money's coming from.
So what's common on grant resources, there'll be a expense cutoff at the end of June. We'll claim those dollars that come in reimbursement, and then those get booked back to the fiscal year. before
Okay.
June 30th.
So you're saying the Oregon Youth Authority, is that OYA? Is going to come in 130,000 more then?
That, well, I'm going to check on that one just to be 100% for sure, but that's,
Because there wasn't anything there, and I just was trying to
yeah.
think it through.
Double check that one.
Okay, that's my question there.
Okay. So moving to page 33, Road Fund 325, and I'm just highlighting significant changes from the prior month, as I normally do. So the projected ending fund balance in the Road Fund 325 is about 7.6 million. You can see that in your lower right. So last month, that was 6.1 million. And effectively, what's really driving most of that is the top revenue line, the motor vehicle revenue tax, which is the gas tax. And again, this was one of the items that we budgeted pretty conservatively due to the pandemic. We thought people would stop driving, not needing to buy gas, reducing the gas tax revenue. And we found out that although that did happen a little bit, it wasn't anywhere near as much as we thought might happen in the budget. So
Well, the rodeos are back on, so the girls are driving all over the
Yep.
West Coast.
Oh, no,
Yep.
well, from the center of the country to
Yep.
here. I know.
On page 320, on page 327 is the solid waste fund. And we're projecting an increase in the ending fund balance there up to 3.9 million, and the driver essentially is the forecast for the second and third revenue lines, the disposal fees. So private and commercial disposal fees, they've projected those are going to come in a lot higher than what they had previously estimated.
We are seeing some of the biggest months we've ever seen at not landfill in terms of, or overall, including the transfer stations, the last couple months literally in our history.
That's great. I hope everyone is really cleaning up.
Well, that's all refuse, not just.
Right, I
yard
know,
debris,
it's not
but,
just
yeah.
the dead branches and the pine trees.
Much of that is related to construction activity, and just sheer population growth, high tourism numbers, just all of those things together. We are at unprecedented levels of tonnage of waste coming into our solid waste operation.
Is the Stevens Road project out there, is that going into our transfer station or to the landfill at Knott now?
It is. They are actually doing a pretty good job of screening out rock and dirt. So what's coming in is actual old trash. Probably not as much as we had feared in terms of the waste that was in those holes. But yes, it is coming in, and that contributes to the numbers.
But you said maybe not as much as we had feared, so it's a little bit lower volume than we had. That's good.
Yeah, and that was, those are decades-old pre-permitted landfills that were used back then, so it's impossible to know for sure. They did, probes into them to try and gauge the depth and the volume of trash in those holes, but you never know until you're in there because it's rocky and it's not a perfect bowl shape, exactly how much you're going to see. And like I said, they have a pretty sophisticated screening operation there. If you've seen, you can actually see it off 27th, the large piles of dirt out there that they've diverted from putting into the stream that comes to Knott landfill.
Greg, I have a question on page 36. I don't know, are you there yet?
I am.
Okay, so my question is, I was looking at this and I'm going, City of Lapine, we had 500,000 in the budget for 2020, but none of that was spent. And then we have 500,000 in the budget for 21, and that shows 0 being reimbursed, spent yet. And I'm just wondering, aren't they not using this funding? I mean, we're allocating funds to be spent in Lapine in the city, correct, for local roads?
I'm not sure. Tom, do you know the answer to that?
Sorry, I was still dwelling on
know.
solid waste.
The third project up from the bottom in the CIP,
Mhm.
City of Lapine, 500,000.
Well, I know they do annual work. There are many roads that the county still has jurisdiction over within the city of Lapine, and they budget annual roads. I have no reason to believe they didn't do work within the city this year, but we'd have to.
Well, it says 0% for the prior year too, though, Tom. And I was just going like, okay, are we just not picking up a journal entry to allocate for it? Or is it not really being done, and shouldn't it be done?
This is CIP, so these are projects, not
Right.
not maintenance. So, yeah, we'll just have to get a report from Chris on that. I don't know off the top of my
I'll check with Cody on that, or Chris and Cody. And I do know that sometimes there'll be a line item that's budgeted for a certain amount, and then it's spent out of that. So although it looks like nothing's being spent against, it's just being spent elsewhere. But you would expect this to drop if that was the case.
Right. Okay, that was
Yep.
just,
I'll check on that and get back.
thank you.
Or are they saving it up for, a once every few years capital investment?
Yeah. that's
Well,
a
this
good
is the
question.
project list, and there may be other reasons why it's not being implemented. Remember, the city manager changed over the year before, too, so they could possibly just not even be ready for something. Or there could be, and I don't know, but they could be waiting for the sewer, because remember, they're trying to do sewer and water, and you probably don't want to do a road over something you're going to cut open.
Right.
So we'll see.
Okay.
I mean, if it's there for their
Yeah.
opportunity.
Why do we do it
they
year
would
after
be
year?
Using it.
So if you turn to page 39, since it's Fair Week, I thought I would kick off Fair Week with some good fair financial news. So Fund 616, that's our county fair fund. That's the fund that just, all of the financials of the annual county fair are in this fund. We look at it in two different ways. You remember, one is on a fiscal year basis because that's how we budget it, but we also do a snapshot on a fair year basis, so on a calendar year basis. But in either case, I just would point your attention to the bottom line in the lower right-hand corner that says projection. You'll see a loss of about $15,000. So normally a loss would be a bad thing, but the number last month in our projection was $87,000. So these numbers are getting better, and at this rate, we expect that the fair will probably maybe even come out in the black this year. So that's some good news to kick off the week. If you turn the page also to the fair fund, it's still the same fund, but we look at it on a calendar year basis instead of a fiscal year, so January through December. We're showing a loss there of about $13,000, and that is down from last month. Our estimate was a $34,000 loss. So both going in the right direction. But wait, there's more. Flip to page 42. A lot of the activity of the fair is supported by the RV park, and of course we have our own financials for the RV park as well. And the key number here at the RV park is if you're looking at Fund 618 on page 42, you'll notice a transfer out to RV reserve of $509,865. See that number there? So that's the net margin that's produced by the RV park. And it's not at the bottom line, it's here because it's the amount that we transfer out of the operations and put it into the reserve.
Well, that's on page 43.
On page 42.
Oh, I see the 509.
Look under transfers on 42 and find transfers out
Oh,
to the
over
RV
there,
reserve.
okay, gotcha.
Yep.
And so, sorry, Greg, again, so we're transferring that out into,
The RV park reserve. The reserve, yeah. I'll show you that here in just a second.
On the next page.
So last month, that number was $437,000, so we have more money being generated in the RV park operating side that's being moved over to reserves. And if you, Commissioner, if you look right to the page 43, you'll notice that there's a transfer in line of $509,000 that comes from the RV park operations. So what that's effectively done is increased on page 43, the ending fund balance projection from $922,000 last month to over $1 million.
But it's still less than what we budgeted.
It is, actually, it's right at what we
Right
budgeted.
where we wanted to be.
The transfer in?
The
budget
bottom,
says
the bottom line.
Okay.
We just didn't spend any capital outlay. See the 100,000 up above? in the
Right.
budget? Yeah.
But we definitely need to do some capital outlay.
And then I think the last comment I have is on the second to last page, on page 45, and this is just a quick comment on the Health Benefits Reserve Fund. We, depending on the timing of our bills that when we pay our health insurance and our health costs, and the timing of our revenue receipts, this will change a little bit, but last month we were projecting an ending fund balance of $15 million. This month, you can see that that's 16.4 million. And the
Can't bring it down, can we?
and that, well, and here's what's interesting. If you look at the very top revenue line of 18.58 million, that number is $750,000 more than what we had budgeted in the beginning. And if you think about the staffing increase, particularly in health services, there's going to be an associated revenue and cost in this fund. So there's definitely the revenue side of it there. But we keep working on this, and we'll be back with that graphic that shows you this declining balance, and we'll have ways that we think we can get the balance down smoothly down to that fund balance target. So it'll take us a few years to get there, but it's going in the right direction. Any questions for me?
When will the audited report, your financials?
December.
When?
It'll be December.
December? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome, and I'll get back to you with those two questions you had.
Thank you, Greg.
Great to see everything rolled up like that.
And it looks good at the end of the
And
end
it's-
of the
yeah,
year.
Well, and yeah, in a COVID year, you didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, are there other items? I was able to do a planning commission interview process, and there's a recommended candidate. I didn't coordinate with Nick Lelock on this, though, so I don't know if I should just mention a name, or, yeah, I guess I wasn't able to prepare for this. We did the interviews, and I don't know, we're not ready today, but I mean, just because we didn't follow up to prepare
do it
for
next
today.
Monday,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, it's just because we didn't follow up to prepare for today. There was two people interviewed. But yeah, we'll bring that back next Monday. Anything else? We do have executive session scheduled.
No.
Okay, so.
She's coming.
Yep, so executive session.